I first heard the song Fear and Trembling by Gang of Youths while navigating my own derelict maze of loneliness and heartbreak. That sense of dislocation and loss that most all of us have experienced had me not so much vowing to abandon or disbelieve in God, but instead found me shaking my fists at the high heavens in a somewhat comical and infantile stupor. However, I didn't quite yield to booze and pills as I might have some years ago, similar to the narrator in the song who is at the stumbling phase of the midnight waltz outside a carousel of endless bars. Instead, I decided to burn through the dating apps like a man on fire. For a spell, I seemed to embody the line in Charles Bukowski's poem, Alone with Everybody. Nobody finds the one, but we keep looking, crawling in and out of beds. And the emptiness and the meaninglessness began to resound with despair off the treacherous stone walls of that maddening maze more than anything else. Before we continue, please like, subscribe, and comment. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. I've also linked Gang of Youth's song Fear and Trembling in the description down below. It's just an epic song on so many levels. So unlike Job in the Bible and Quran, who accepts all manner of suffering with profound patience and grace, I have a definite talent for reveling with the devil and challenging any angels and blessings that come my way. Still, Iggy Pop said it best while paraphrasing a Tom Waits song. If I kick out my devils, my angels might leave. The song Fear and Trembling by Gang of Youth struck at the right time, and I have no problem calling it the hand of Providence now. The best songs, stories, and poems reach across the chasms of time, place, and space and elevate us out of our suffering and solipsism for just enough time for us to look up again with a renewed sense of awe, humility, and gratitude. It's happened too often to me to disregard it as coincidence anymore. It's also why James Baldwin's maxim on pain and heartbreak holds true for so many of us. You think your pain and heartbreak are unprecedented in the history of the world, but then you read. It was Dostoevsky and Dickens who taught me that the things that tormented me most were the very things that connected me to all the people who were alive or who ever had been alive. The same is true for songs. And so when Fear and Trembling showed up on a random Spotify playlist, and I first heard Gang of Youth's lead singer and songwriter David Leo Pepe sing the following lines at around the 1 minute mark during an aimless AM drive all over Los Angeles, I immediately turned up the volume. So if faith is to lose the mind to win God, then I guess I got nothing to prove. That seemed to resonate with me, but I was unsure. Then the song built to its first crescendo and chorus, and Leo Pepe screamed at about 2 minutes in, "I'm a crier and a fighter, not a faker and a fraud. So if losing my religion is the way to finding God, then light it up." Suddenly the song began to resonate deep within my bones. I was lost, angry, and begging for a little light from above. Instead, it manifested through my speakers. I cranked the song to full blast and floored it down an empty Los Angeles freeway deep into the AM hours, experiencing yet another dark night of my soul a la St. John of the Cross. Not that I'm comparing myself to the spiritual heights reached by a 16th century Spanish mystic by listening to a pop song, but even a sliver of light can light the way if it's dark enough. Again, listen to the song. You'll notice that the defiant lyrics transform into something less tragic and more triumphant when channeled through the medium of music. Leonard Cohen demonstrates just how powerful and providential music can be when he references David from the Bible in his song Hallelujah. Now I've heard there was a secret chord that David played and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do you? It goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, and the major lift. That's not just a formula for a catchy hook either. There's something absolutely magical and transcendent that can happen when the right lyric converges with the right melody, and it was more than evident in Gang of Youth's Fear and Trembling to me. But what does all of this have to do with Soren Kierkegaard? Well, at first glance, Gang of Youth's epic song Fear and Trembling might seem too on the nose in reference to the Danish philosopher. After all, it's named directly after Kierkegaard's famous work published in 1843. However, both the song and the religious treatise bear an intimate, if not complex, relationship with one another with regard to faith in God and the meaning of it all. The very phrase fear and trembling is taken from Philippians in the New Testament. Continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Drawing inspiration from that verse, Kierkegaard's work dives into the nature of faith, morality, and the individual's relationship with God. Most importantly, Kierkegaard argues that the highest kind of understanding one can achieve is to make the final leap of faith beyond the ethical and logical while pursuing a deepening and personal relationship with God. As Kierkegaard famously and paradoxically puts it in Fear and Trembling, faith begins precisely where thinking leaves off. That reminds me of how we often reach out the most to God, heaven, whatever, and He to us when we've hit rock bottom. We've exhausted all seemingly rational attempts to solve our sense of dislocation, defeat, and despair, and have turned to dereliction as a distraction from it all. In fact, Kierkegaard's quote reminds me quite a bit of Zen Buddhist koans that are meant to force one into thinking beyond the realms of rote logic and analysis. Monks are often sleep-deprived and work to the bone before they can even make any semblance of the koans presented to them. Regardless, one has to meditate on Kierkegaard's ideas in a very indirect and peripheral manner to begin to understand what he means. Actually, it reminds me of a great line from Emily Dickinson. Tell all the truth, but tell it slant. In this sense, the song Fear and Trembling by Gang of Youths is very much a wild and ardent homage of sorts to Kierkegaard's work that highlights the very struggle to believe or trust in God amid the threadbare tapestry of longing, loneliness, and resentment that define our day and age. And to be sure, lead singer and songwriter David Leopepe is no stranger to faith or philosophy. In fact, most of the band members in Gang of Youths met while attending a Christian youth group at Sydney's famous and controversial Hillsong Church, though Leopepe distanced himself from such affiliations long ago. He told Rolling Stone in 2018, "Personally, I don't have any religious affiliations anymore. Those are ties I cut some time ago. Within conversations about faith, however, I still align myself with Jesus. I'm just not a great poster boy for it." Still, faith in God have left an indelible mark on Leopepe, as evidenced by his lyrics in Fear and Trembling, and he mirrors Kierkegaard's own struggles as well as my own. In fact, I'd even argue that my favorite line in the song, and the one that compels me to floor it down empty AM freeways, also echoes the German poet René Maria Rilke and the Islamic mystic Rumi as much as it does Kierkegaard. Here's the line again. "I'm a crier and a fighter, not a faker and a fraud. So if losing my religion is the way to finding God, then light it up." Here, the path to God and understanding is not about rote righteousness, walking the straight and narrow, and tallying up our deeds on some heavenly scoreboard. It's about sin and suffering as a path to enlightenment and understanding. As such, in an excerpt from a private letter, Rilke writes, "Sin is the most wonderfully roundabout path to God." Even more profoundly and to the point, Rumi states in the Mathnawi, "He makes losing the way a way to true faith. He makes going astray a field for the harvest of righteousness, so that no righteous one may be without fear, and no traitor may be without hope. The gracious one has put the antidote in the poison, so that they may say he is the Lord of hidden grace." While I can't speak to what exactly David Leopepe or Gang of Youths believe, I can relate to the path he's on, as I've spent countless hours navigating the dark and stumbling my way toward the light as much as anyone else. I wish I had the patience of Job, but I'm often just Jacob, wrestling angels while carousing with the devils on the side. But I also know that redemption is always at hand. that the light shines upon all of us. It's that too often our eyes are often shut by some combination of ignorance, ingratitude, and fatigue most of all. And maybe that's the beauty of it all. When a song or a story or a poem cuts through all that darkness, it's a reminder from the other side, that higher heavenly side, above and beyond us, but also deep within us, to light it up.